I have a tendency to get emotionally attached to inanimate objects. As a kid, I would play out various dramas with my stuffed animals, and the distinct personalities they developed to me made it very hard when the time came to give any of them away. In fact, I still have most of them. This is not that uncommon of a phenomenon, of course. Not only do plenty of kids do this exact thing, but there are whole posts dedicated to seeing faces in car grills, milk jugs, and all other sorts of common items. But an inanimate object doesn't need a face to spark a sense of personality, and once you've seen one, it's hard not to see more like it. All this to say, I picked up a new hobby a couple of years ago, probably the strangest one yet, though it's a tight race, and this is where it all started: the collection of a series of photographs of sprinkler heads wearing different hats. For reference, I used to work in irrigation and spent a lot of time looking at sprinkler heads. Here in Canada, a big part of working in irrigation is using compressed air to get all the water out of the system in the fall, and then putting water back into the system in the spring, checking for leaks and other issues. Because they don't run from late fall to mid spring, the grass has the opportunity to grow over the head, making them look like they are wearing a little grass hat when they pop up from the ground. When I saw a head wearing a mushroom for a hat, my imagination started spinning, and I couldn't help but imagine it as a little character. And of course, I had to get a video and a picture or two. And after that, I started imagining all the sprinkler heads wearing different hats as characters, and thought that I could use it as a character and story building exercise. I'm going to start by building a collection of these characters, and then later build a world around them, starting, of course, with our little mushroom wearing friend. And I'm going to document the whole process here. So, whether you're just curious to see what sorts of characters will come out of these sprinkler head pictures, or if you want to follow along and see one person's version of the story writing process, well, you're welcome to join me. Please note this is a speed draw and I redrew every line several times, so they do flicker quite a bit. I started by outlining the rough shape of the sprinkler head so that I can see it more clearly and so that it is free of most of the sprinkler specific details. When I was taking these pictures, the goal was mostly speed, not excellent quality, so clarifying the outline made everything else easier. After that, I played around with different designs that fit within the character idea I could see in the sprinkler itself, with the main decision being whether or not to keep the basic sprinkler shape. Obviously, anyone wearing a tiny mushroom on their heads is going to be a little fun guy, so I knew I was working in that direction, and ultimately decided to leave the more cylindrical shape behind for a rounder one, since, in the language of character design, round characters are friend shaped. Once the details started coming into focus, I started working on a bigger version, but still just as a sketch. Then, after I liked that sketch, I started a new one focusing on refining the details. I decided to exaggerate the size of the sweater even more, putting an arm out to show how far it goes past his hand, in order to emphasize the fact that this is a small, childish character. What he wears is impractical, and makes him look even smaller than he is. After the design was finished, I started adding the line art, which further refined and solidified the design. After this pose was done, I drew a couple extra ones to show more sides of his personality. These drawings took less time since I already had the design nailed down, and because it's a simple one, I barely refined the sketches before jumping in with the line art. Again, I was keeping in mind that the goal was to show that this character is small, but I also wanted to show that he was adventurous, since as I was drawing him, I decided that he was going to be venturing out of his small, safe community. Already, the broad strokes of the world the character will inhabit were starting to appear in my mind, but we'll cover that another time. The main thought was that the world is a scary place for someone so small, with no adventuring experience, but he's off on an adventure anyway. What that adventure will be, I have no idea. Once the line art was on, I added colors. I color picked the mushroom from the original image to include that in the design, and worked from there, following the character design principle that you should keep your palette limited. I chose a bold red, balanced by a lighter but still saturated blue, to make him both stand out from the other characters and the environment, and continue to highlight that he's just a kid, since these kinds of saturated primary colors are most often used for children's toys. And here we have Button, just a little guy ready for an adventure. He knows nothing about the world outside his little community, and neither do I. I mean, I don't even know anything about the world inside his little community, but he sure is excited to find out all about it. Before discovering that world with him, however, first we need to build out his community a little, and I have plenty other Sprinklerhead pictures to use as inspiration. Hopefully, you'll join me, and Button, of course, as the story unfolds.